On today's Locked On Texan podcast, Cody and I give our early preseason thoughts and exclusive with Jacob Martin.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers, to a Wednesday episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I do want to take some time to thank all of the new listeners, new viewers, wherever you're listening to the podcast right now. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment if you are new to the page. Also, shout out our everydayers from the Himalayas. Thank you guys for returning back for another episode of the Locked On Texan podcast. I am your Texan football analyst, John, some sports guy Hickman, and of course, I'm joined by none other than Sports Illustrated's own and Houston Texan credential media member, Cody Davis. We're going to look at more takeaways from day 11 of training camp and exclusive interview with Jacob Martin, but we have to start off today's show just a day away from preseason, our early preseason thoughts and what we're looking forward to.
Yeah, and on yesterday, we had an opportunity to talk to Coach DeMeco Ryans for the very first time since he announced C.J. Stroud as the starting quarterback for Thursday night. And he did say that even though Stroud will be starting under center for the Houston Texans, that does not mean that Stroud has won the quote-unquote quarterback competition. He said him and his staff will evaluate C.J. Stroud's performance. They will reevaluate everything going into the second preseason game, which will take place next Saturday at NRG Stadium against the Miami Dolphins. Coach DeMeco Ryans also said that Davis Mills will receive some snaps as well. And that's very telling because unlike the situation that took place on Monday, Davis Mills went through the entire practice, taking second team reps, and had a pretty solid performance outside of throwing that one interception. So the quarterback situation, the Houston Texans, they are still not officially naming C.J. Stroud the starter for the entire 2023. So that's something you want to keep your eye on. And two, and most important, John, and to be honest with you, I think this is probably the most important thing that you can take away for the first preseason game is the coaching alone. This is going to be DeMeco Ryans' first game as the head coach of the Houston Texans, along with Bobby Slowick. This is going to be his first game as the offensive coordinator. And look, this game doesn't count, so this is going to be the perfect example for them to get into a flow on how they want to call these games throughout the 2023 campaign.
The Patriots are not expected to play a bulk of their starters, including looking at Mac Jones, Devontae Parker. I think that Kendrick Bourne may get some burn. I'm not 100% sure. But overall, other starters are not expected to play in the preseason game. And if they do, it won't be a lot of plays. It'll be more so for the less experienced players. But throughout training camp, I think the defensive line has been much better than what we expected. We can also take a look and say that, well, the offensive line as a whole, maybe not just the starting five, but the backups, they haven't been good. They haven't been solid. Mm-hmm. And so with the amount of raving and praising we've been doing about John Grenard, who's looked good, Jerry Hughes, who's looked good, Will Anderson, who has looked by far the best of that unit, Malik Collins, Sheldon Rankins, Roy Lopez is another guy that I think of all of the guys we've talked on and off air highly about, maybe closer to the most, like right where Will Anderson has been in terms of praise-wise. And so I want to see those guys go out there and get active against another team, right? We have already acknowledged the depth for Houston's offensive line isn't a strong suit. And so we can look at that and say, well, maybe the talent that they're going up against is the reason why you've been able to make a lot of these plays. And that may sound like it's disrespect. It is not, because if you're in the NFL, you are talented. But now I think it's time for those big boys to put their hands on somebody else that's not wearing their jersey. And also for them to get an opportunity to finish plays. How many times have we seen the offense make a play because, well, you can't hit your quarterback or you're not going full speed, so you're allowing things to play out? I'm looking at that. Guys, there's a name out of Patriot camp that's been ringing.
Why are you smiling? Why are you smiling? You're not New England. It's
ringing.
Texas. It's Houston, right?
Mario Douglas is a name that has been ringing for the New England Patriots. And do you want to know what defensive player I want to see go out there and earn the contract Houston gave him? Shaq Griffin. He's a guy that he's been in the league. I think he has a Pro Bowl under his belt.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that since he's arrived to Houston, ladies and gentlemen, and I've kind of been holding off on this a little bit, he has not put together a string of good moments consistently as a Houston Texan. So we got wrapped up in talking about whether or not Steven Nelson was going to be on this roster to start the year. Should they keep him or not, especially after the signing of Shaq Griffin? Guys, I think the signing of Shaq Griffin allowed Houston to really get a full evaluation of what they could and could not get out of Steven Nelson and what they could lose. And then we see maybe a week or 2 weeks into training camp, he gets that construction where he's getting actual more money to his contract now.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's making 6.5 this year compared to 4.5 because Shaq Griffin just hasn't looked good. And he may be in insurance form, but if he's going to be in insurance form, if he's going to be the next guy up or somebody that you want to rotate out, I want to see how good of a player can he be against guys that's not wearing his jersey as well. And then overall, you know, I talk about the lack of talent on that offensive line depth. I just want to see guys, Craig Fant, right? If Titus Howard is out for an extended amount of time, which I don't think he will, I think at the latest, like I said yesterday, maybe week 2 of the regular season, pushing week 3, if that. At the latest, at the earliest, he can come back from week 1. But if he's out, George Fant, and if somebody else goes down, are you going to be able to step up and be serviceable for the Houston Texans? Juice Scruggs, a guy that I think is getting burned earlier than what he probably should as a starter. You know, how can Juice Scruggs and that combination of youth with Kenyan Green play out for this franchise moving forward? So I am looking at the offensive line, just the big boys up front on both sides of the ball, excuse me for that camera error, and Shaq Griffin to see, you know, why are you here? In a sense of, we know you have the talent, you're in the NFL for a reason, you've made the Pro Bowl before, but why are you in Houston? Because as of right now, Cody, stop me if I'm wrong. If I'm lying, I'm done. I haven't seen him put together an amount of plays to make me say, okay, that's why they brought him in. August is here, and you know what that means. The official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out best ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you do, listen, it's very simple. All you got to do is one live snake draft, no waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week. Try it out with Underdog's Best Ball Mania Tournament. The largest fantasy football contest of all time is back and is bigger than ever with $15 million of total prize up for grabs, including an absurd, crazy $3 million going to the winner. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July. So don't wait around. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store and sign up with promo code Locked On to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. That's Fantasy, Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Locked On.
Welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, to this latest installment of Locked On Texans. We've been talking a lot about the defense as of late, ever since the start of training camp. And on yesterday, had an opportunity to catch up with Jacob Martin, one of my guys from the 2021 campaign. Had an opportunity to talk to him about returning to the Texans, you know, what went on during his lone season with the New York Jets before he got traded to the Denver Broncos. And then we wrap this interview up with just him talking about his expectations for this defense. So, Jacob Martin, can you just start off just talking about how it feels to be back here in the city of Houston and being back with the Houston Texans?
You know, super, just grateful for this organization. You know, grateful for the player it's made me. You know, excited to come back. Excited to see the changes that have been made. You know, it feels like I've been away for a while, but it's only been a season. You know, so I'm excited just to get back with the guys and a lot of familiar faces and familiar routine and just to show out.
what has been some of the major differences that you've seen? Because when you was here, you came to, before the transition period, then the early part of the transition period. Now it seems like, you come back towards the end of this transition period.
They just have continued to add good people to the organization, and to keep that good energy around the building. There's a nice buzz going around in the facility, like back in the days when we were winning, the AFC South and things like that. So I'm just happy to be back part of that, that environment, that culture. You're in the locker room full of guys that are bought in, I understand that we'll cut the roster down to 53, but all 90 guys we have in this locker room are a whole bunch of good men, and everyone's completely bought into this process, into this program.
How has it been working alongside Coach DeMeco Ryans?
It's been amazing, truly to have someone that has literally done this, that's practicing this heat. Yeah. You know what I mean? He understands the grind out here in Texas, and how this heat affects your body and things like that, but just a brilliant mind, man, a leader of men, and he's excited to be a part of his first year of coaching for sure.
Along those same lines, do you think there's more so of a benefit of having a coach who's a former player who not only, understand what it means to play in this heat, but at the same time played this game at the highest level?
Yeah, man, I think it's super important, like you said, someone that has played this game at such a high level, coached this game at such a high level, he understands the grind, but he also understands what it takes to be successful in this league, so just having that experience under him, it's you take heed to a lot of his words, you listen with your ears wide open, when he's speaking, because he's someone that has done it, he's lived it, he's experienced it from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, man. So just excited for what he brings to the table.
Yeah. How would you best describe last year? Because, free agency came around, you signed with the New York Jets, and you were traded to the Denver Broncos. How would you describe that?
That's just that's the football grinder, man. I got to experience that a little bit. It's just part of the business. You know what I mean? So that's what it is.
Last time you was here, you made that transition from a linebacker to defensive end. How has your game evolved since then? Because your final year in 2021, you recorded a career high in sacks. It was like 4.5 to 5, somewhere along those lines.
Defensive end is my natural position. I played DM my whole life, whether it's high school, whether it was college. I didn't start playing truly outside linebacker with air quotes until I got to Houston with my 2-point stances and those kind of things. But being able to go up to New York and learn a similar system like this has made me a lot more comfortable. I've reverted back to my true DM form. So I'm excited for the year.
Last question before I let you go. We seen this defense make a lot of plays throughout training camp. What do you think the overall, goal is going to be for this defense?
Hey, man, I think sky's the limit for this defense, man. As long as these guys continue to buy in and come in and put this work in and get better, really challenge each other, challenge the offense, and take no days off. Just slowly but surely stacking those days, getting 1% better at a time. This defense, man, the limits are really limitless, really. Yeah, there's some freaks on here. You got Jerry, you got Sheldon Rankins, you got Malik Collins, John Grenard, Will Anderson, you got DP, you got JP in the back end, you got Jimmy Ward, all these big name dudes that play football the right way, man. So it makes it easy, to come in to work. You don't want to let those guys down. Those are some high caliber dudes, that play football at some of the highest levels. You know what I mean? So you don't want to come in here and let those type of guys down. You know what I mean? So I'm just excited to come in and work with those guys every day.
Please excuse all the noise in the background, because that was fresh off the practice field. Players always have their family come up, hang around the team and stuff throughout training camp at the end of practices. So that was part of the reason why you heard a random baby start crying at the end of the video, heard some music. Thankfully, you couldn't hear what music was playing because, of course, we don't have licenses to that music. But once again, shout out to Jacob Martin for a phenomenal interview following day 11 of training camp. And John, listeners and viewers, you guys can hear the excitement in his voice when he started talking about this defense. And look, I understand this is a defense that has gone up against, John, as you put it, a depleted offensive line. This is a defense who has played against a rookie quarterback, average quarterback in Davis Mills at best, but you cannot deny the work that all three levels have put in ever since day one of training camp. So far, this is a defense that has recorded a total of 10 takeaways throughout training camp. Yesterday marks the 10th takeaway because Graylin Arnold actually had an opportunity to record the 9th interception of training camp. Of course, unfortunately, that came due to a pass made by Davis Mills. But John, when you look at the fact that this is a defense that has showcased the ability to take away the football, this is a defense who has shown the ability that they are going to have an opportunity to stop the opposing team from scoring. Last year alone, they gave up an average of almost 25 points per game. And of course, the biggest one that I've been preaching ever since the end of last season, this is a defense that has showcased the ability to stop the run. Last year alone, they gave up an average of 170 on the ground. I believe there was 6 games where a running back rushed for over 100 yards. And of course, Derrick Henry rushed for over 200 yards in one of those games. You know, I don't think this defense is going to carry this team to, let's say, 8, 9, 10 wins. But what I would say, this is a defense that's going to help this team stay competitive throughout the season and actually help this team be even better. And this is a defense that's going to lay the foundation of something special with this version of the Houston Texans.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. Before we close out today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, Cody has more takeaways from day 11 of training camp. Before I pass it back over to you, Cody, Christian Harris made a great play on Dalton Schultz. A lot of great plays was made. Xavier Hutchinson is a guy that you heard me say, you listeners and viewers, how many times has he looked and been the best wide receiver or the wide receiver that has stood out the most?
Mm-hmm.
That's been Xavier Hutchinson. And Davis Mills laid out a beautiful pass, by the way. Davis Mills is not going down without a fight.
No, he really not. Like I said, you know, he looked really good on yesterday outside that interception.
I think Houston is putting those clips out of him with those passes, so maybe Tampa can come call him. But hit him on the sideline. John Mechie is a guy that's making plays. Tank Dell is a guy that's making plays. Nico Collins got involved on Tuesday as well. He's making plays. So the wide receiver group, I think, is coming along. But when we look at X Hutchinson, we talk about preseason. He's a guy that, I want to see if you can continue doing this against the likes of your rookie classmate, Gonzalez, who the Patriots took in the first round out of Oregon, I believe. The rest of the guys that you're going to go up against, because if he continues his strong play, then I wonder, okay, does he take snaps away from somebody? How many wide receivers, if he continues to ball out, does he force Houston's hand to carry on game day? And who becomes expendable if Xavier Hutchinson continues to ball out? But Cody, more takeaways from day 11 of camp.
For the second day in a row, one of, if not my best play, came on the offensive line, was second-year offensive lineman Kenyan Green. And, you know, I'm smiling because this is a guy I think everyone is rooting for. And for the second day in a row, we saw the growth in the development. During the first set of 11-on-11 play, he held his own against Malik Collins. And that is saying that this young man is ready to take that next step that we all wanted to see. And here's the thing about Green. It doesn't matter if you was like me saying that his skill set was somewhat still on a rookie level. It doesn't matter if you was like some people who wanted to give up on him or whatever the case might be. Every time we had a debate, an argument, about this young man, it basically wasn't due to his skill set. It had everything to do about his durability. And the fact that he is officially going through
I did question his skill set because of the durability of his injuries, him not being able to progress. Skill set did come up for me though.
Yeah. Like that's what I was getting at. Like, even though a lot of people, we all had our concerns about him, the biggest thing about, Green through these first couple of years that we've been watching him has been his durability. Because, John, I think had Green come to the Texans and has been healthy ever since day one, he had an opportunity to go through an entire rookie camp and all of this other stuff. I don't think we'd be having these discussions about him as of right now. So, but I say all that just to say that young man has some potential. And you guys heard the clip on yesterday. Coach DeMeco Ryans has truly enjoyed looking at the development of Green. CJ Stroud, another young man who's literally growing in front of our eyes. Yesterday, start of training camp didn't look so hot. However, he had an opportunity to find his niche and the offense started to click. But looking at that offensive line, John, I'm going to just go ahead and say George Fant, he did not look good. A terrible time trying to contain Jerry Hughes. And I just don't think he's the answer to replace Titus Howard if push comes to shove.
Houston
I understand.
Houston did sign an offensive tackle on Tuesday. I found out. You go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, no disrespect to George, but in my opinion, I would like to see the Houston Texans kind of experiment with Austin Deculus a little bit more, because on Monday, he was one of the guys that got some reps at right tackle in place of Titus Howard. And Austin Deculus, I mean, he didn't look the greatest, but he did look better than George. This is, I want to say, maybe the second training camp day that I'm looking at George thinking to myself, there might be an issue if he's touching the field. No disrespect, but I just don't like how the way things look. And you already mentioned a play about Christian Harris, which was one of the, let's say, top 3 highlights of day 11.
Yeah, they did. The Houston Texans, you guys signed Rashad Coward, former Cardinals, Steelers, and Bears guard/tackle. To give you guys some background on him, he's played 30 games for the Chicago Bears from 2017 through 2020, starting in 15 of those games. 2021, played with the Pittsburgh Steelers and was active for 4 games. In 2022, Coward signed a reserve future contract with the Atlanta Falcons, but was released in early June. And so they are bringing in some guys to get some depth. I think that's important because they absolutely need to make sure that whenever Titus Howard comes back, whoever has to step up, if their number is called, they'll be ready. Also, a guy that I hated to hear this news. You guys may not find it significant, but it crushed me. Jesse Matthews, a player, undrafted rookie free agent out of San Diego State, man, who's been having a hell of a camp, especially the last few days out. He was placed on injury reserve, and so he is a guy that would miss out on valuable preseason time. He had a strong camp, and now he's on injury reserve, and so hate to hear that news. That young man was having a hell of a camp for being an undrafted rookie wide receiver, making plays left and right. Thank you guys for checking out today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast wherever you get your podcasts, especially and including YouTube as well. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Also, give me a follow on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody M. Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.